I stood frozen in the hallway of my own penthouse, my hand trembling against the cool wall as my husband's laughter echoed from the living room. The champagne glass in my other hand felt impossibly heavy. Seriously though, how do you deal with it? Thomas Bradford's voice carried clearly through the open doorway. My wife spends more on handbags than your girl makes in 6 months. More laughter. Male voices overlapping in agreement. These were Derek's colleagues, his friends, the people he'd invited to celebrate our 5th wedding anniversary. I'd been in the kitchen arranging dessert when their conversation had drifted into dangerous territory. It's not that bad, Derek said, but his tone held amusement rather than defense. Natasha's happy with her little teaching job. She loves those kids. Little teaching job, someone else repeated mockingly. Man, I couldn't do it. My girlfriend makes nearly what I do. It's important, you know, to have a partner who contributes. Well, technically Natasha contributes, Derek said, and I heard the smile in his voice. She contributes about $38,000 a year. Before taxes. The room erupted in laughter. My chest tightened. Come on, Derek. Be real with us. This was Patterson, Derek's boss. Does it bother you? Having to carry everything financially? The pause that followed lasted only 3 seconds. 3 seconds that changed everything. Honestly? Yeah. Sometimes it does. Derek's voice had shifted, becoming more serious, more real. I mean, I love her. But there are moments when I think about what life could be like with someone more ambitious. Someone on my level. My fingers went numb. The champagne glass slipped from my hand, hitting the hardwood floor with a crash that shattered both crystal and pretense. The living room went silent. I didn't move to clean it up. I didn't rush in to salvage the moment. I simply stood there, staring at the puddle of golden liquid spreading across the floor, watching it seep into the grain of the wood like my humiliation was seeping into my bones. Derek appeared in the hallway, his handsome face arranged in concern that didn't quite reach his eyes. Babe, you okay? I looked at him. Really looked at him. His perfectly styled dark hair, his designer suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, his expensive watch catching the light. Everything about him screamed success, wealth, superiority. And he had no idea. No idea that the penthouse he bragged about to his friends wasn't his. No idea that every piece of furniture, every fixture, every gleaming surface he claimed as evidence of his success was mine. Had always been mine. No idea that the woman he pitied, the woman he was embarrassed by, the woman whose salary he mocked, was worth more than everyone in that living room combined. I'm fine, I heard myself say. My voice sounded distant, mechanical. Just tired. I think I'll go to bed. Now. Tasha, it's only 9:30. It's our anniversary party. Our anniversary party. Where he just admitted to his colleagues that he fantasized about a different wife. A more ambitious wife. Someone on his level. I have parent-teacher conferences tomorrow. You know how it is with my little teaching job. Something flickered across his face. Guilt maybe. Or just irritation that I'd overheard. Tasha. Enjoy your evening, Derek. I walked past him, past the living room full of men who just laughed at my expense, and into the master bedroom. Our bedroom, except it wasn't really ours, was it? Was mine. The bed was mine. The view of the city skyline was mine. Even the air he breathed in this space was mine. I closed the door and locked it, then stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the glittering city below. Somewhere down there were couples who were honest with each other. Marriages built on truth instead of ego. Women who didn't have to hide who they really were just to feel loved. My phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer, confirming our meeting for next week. I'd scheduled it 2 days ago, after finding suspicious charges on Derek's credit card. Hotel rooms. Expensive dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. A jewelry purchase from Cartier that I'd never received. I'd wanted to believe there was an explanation. I'd wanted to think that maybe, just maybe, I was being paranoid. But tonight had clarified everything. Derek didn't respect me. He didn't value me. He stayed with me because he thought I needed him, because my financial dependence made him feel powerful, important, necessary. He had no idea that I'd never needed him at all. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't my lawyer. It was a notification from the building's security system, a feature I'd never told Derek I had access to. The system I'd installed years ago, before we were married, when I'd purchased this penthouse with money from my grandmother's trust fund. I opened the app and scrolled through the lobby camera footage from earlier in the week. There he was, Derek, entering the building on Tuesday night. But he wasn't alone. A woman walked beside him, laughing at something he'd said, her hand on his arm with a familiarity that made my stomach turn. I zoomed in on her face. Young, pretty, confident. I'd seen her before at Derek's company events. Remember something? His assistant. I watched them enter the elevator. Watched Derek's hand slip to her waist. Watched her lean into him. They'd been in my home. In the penthouse I owned. While I was working late at a school fundraiser, trying to raise money for art supplies because the district budget had been cut again, my husband had brought another woman into my space. I sat down on the edge of the bed, still holding my phone, the evidence glowing in my hands. 5 years. 5 years of pretending to be less than I was. 5 years of acting grateful for his support. 5 years of playing the struggling teacher while secretly owning not just this penthouse, but 3 other properties across the city. 5 years of loving a man who was embarrassed to call me his wife. The bedroom door handle rattled. Tasha? Come on, don't be like this. Open the door. I didn't answer. I was too busy thinking, planning, calculating. Derek thought he was the successful one. The provider. The one who made our life possible. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. And when I was done, everyone would know the truth. Not just about the penthouse or the money or the properties, but about Derek himself. About who he really was when he thought no one was watching. My grandmother used to tell me that the best revenge wasn't hot and quick. It was cold and calculated. It was patient. Babe, I'm sorry you heard that. It didn't mean anything. You know how guys talk. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window. A beautiful African-American woman looked back at me. Intelligent eyes. Strong features. A woman who'd spent too long making herself smaller so a man could feel bigger. No more. Go back to your guests, Derek, I called through the door. Celebrate our anniversary. Enjoy the penthouse. I could practically hear his relief. Okay. We'll talk in the morning, yeah? Love you. I didn't respond. Because morning was going to change everything. The morning after the anniversary party, I woke before Derek. The sun was just beginning to paint the city skyline in shades of pink and gold, and for a moment, I let myself remember when that view had meant something different. 5 years ago, I'd stood at this same window, younger and more hopeful, believing I'd found something real. I met Derek Coleman at a charity fundraiser for education reform. I'd gone reluctantly, dragged along by my friend Simone who worked in nonprofit management. I'd worn a simple black dress from Target, my teacher's salary making designer clothing seem ridiculous. I wasn't there to impress anyone. I was there because I cared about kids getting better resources. Derek had approached me at the bar, ordering whiskey while I clutched a glass of wine I hadn't touched. You look like you'd rather be anywhere else, he'd said, smiling. He'd been attractive in that polished way that usually made me wary. Too smooth, too perfect. I'm just not big on crowds, I'd admitted. Me neither. Want to escape to the balcony? We talked for 2 hours. He told me about his job at a tech startup, his dreams of building something meaningful, his love of old movies and jazz music. I told him about my 3rd grade classroom, about the student who'd finally learned to read after months of struggle, about my belief that education could change everything. He'd never asked about my family wealth. I'd never volunteered the information. That was my secret. The thing I'd learned to hide after too many relationships that changed the moment people discovered the truth. My grandmother, Loretta Washington, had been a brilliant investor and businesswoman. She'd built a real estate empire in the 70s and 80s, buying property when nobody expected a black woman to succeed. When she'd passed away the year before I met Derek, she'd left everything to me. Her only grandchild. Her legacy. $30 million in trust funds, properties, and investments. But I'd seen what money did to people. I'd watched friends become strangers when they learned about my inheritance. I'd dated men who suddenly had business ideas they needed funded, or debt they needed help with, or expectations about the lifestyle I should be providing. So I'd made a decision. I would live simply, teach because I loved it, and tell no one about the money until I was absolutely sure they loved me for me. Derek had seemed different. He'd been successful in his own right, driven and ambitious. When he picked me up for our first date in his BMW, when he'd insisted on paying for every dinner, when he talked about his career goals, I thought maybe this was it. Someone who didn't need my money. Someone who wanted me, not my bank account. 6 months into our relationship, I'd purchased this penthouse through a trust my grandmother had established. The deed was in the trust's name, not mine. When Derek had been complaining about his cramped apartment, I told him about this amazing rental I'd found. Rent-controlled, I'd said. A friend of a friend's uncle owned it and was giving me a deal. How much? He'd asked. $800 a month, I'd lied. Can you believe it? In this neighborhood? Derek had been thrilled. Move in with me. I'll cover it. 800 is nothing. And just like that, Derek Coleman had started paying me $800 a month to live in a penthouse I owned outright, worth about $4 million. I told myself it was a test. If he truly loved me, if we built something real, I'd tell him the truth eventually. We'd laugh about it. He'd understand why I'd been cautious. But the truth was, a part of me had enjoyed watching him feel like the provider, the protector, the successful one. It had made him happy, and his happiness had seemed like love. We'd gotten married in a small ceremony at City Hall. I'd worn a dress from a department store. We'd celebrated with dinner at an Italian restaurant. Derek had talked about how we'd build our life together, how his career would support us both, how I could teach without worrying about money because he'd take care of everything. I'd smiled and nodded and signed the prenup his lawyer had insisted on. The prenup that protected his assets and ensured I'd walk away with nothing if we divorced. The irony wasn't lost on me. Now, standing at that same window 5 years later, I felt foolish. I'd been so busy protecting my heart that I'd lost sight of what mattered. Honesty, respect, true partnership. Derek stirred in bed behind me. I heard him reach for his phone, checking messages before he'd even opened his eyes properly. This had become his routine. Phone first, wife second. Morning, he mumbled, his voice rough with sleep. Morning. About last night. Don't. I turned to face him. Just don't. He sat up, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Even fresh from sleep, he looked like he belonged in a cologne commercial. Come on, Tasha. You're really going to be upset about some stupid guy talk? They don't even know you. Their opinions don't matter. But yours does. I was just playing along. You know how it is when guys get together. Everyone's trying to one-up each other. By insulting their wives? Derek's jaw tightened. I wasn't insulting you. I was just being honest about our situation. Our situation. I repeated the words carefully. You mean the situation where you're the successful breadwinner and I'm the poor teacher you've had to support? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Derek? When you told your boss that sometimes you wish you had a more ambitious wife? When you let them laugh about my salary? When you said you carry everything financially? He had the decency to look uncomfortable. You're twisting my words. Am I? We stared at each other across the bedroom. This room that had once felt like our sanctuary now felt like enemy territory. I think, Derek said slowly, that maybe you're being overly sensitive. You've been stressed lately. The school year, your students, all that pressure. Maybe you should take a break. We could afford it. You could quit teaching, focus on yourself for a while. You want me to quit my job? I'm saying you don't have to work. I make enough for both of us. Why are you putting yourself through all that stress for $38,000 a year? There was again. My salary weaponized against me. I love teaching, I said quietly. I know you do, babe. But at some point you have to think about what makes sense. What if we want kids soon? You'd have to quit anyway. Why not get a head start, enjoy some time to yourself? I almost laughed. Kids. He wanted to talk about kids after what I'd overheard last night. After what I'd seen on the security footage. When were you going to tell me about Amber? The question came out before I could stop it. Derek's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. What about Amber? Your assistant. The one you brought here on Tuesday night while I was at the school fundraiser. The color drained from his face. How did you? It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that you brought another woman into our home. Into my space. It's not what you think. Really? Then what is it, Derek? Explain it to me. Make it make sense. He stood up, reaching for his robe. She needed to pick up some documents for the Tokyo meeting. It was work-related. That's all. At 9 o'clock at night? Documents that couldn't wait until the next morning? You're being paranoid. Am I? I pulled out my phone, opened the security footage, and turned the screen toward him. Because this doesn't look like a business meeting to me. Derek watched himself on the screen, his hand on Amber's waist, her body leaning into his. When the footage ended, he didn't say anything for a long moment. It's not an affair, he finally said. Nothing happened. Nothing happened yet. But it's heading there, isn't it? Tasha. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. Just tell me the truth. Derek sank back onto the bed, his head in his hands. For a second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I don't know, he said quietly. Maybe I've been confused. Work has been stressful. Amber is always there and she gets it, you know? She understands the pressure, the late nights, the deals. She speaks my language. And I don't. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I see, I said. So this is about more than my salary. This is about you wanting someone who fits into your world better. Someone who makes sense in the life you're trying to build. It's not that simple. Actually, Derek, it is. You're embarrassed by me. By what I do, what I make, who I am. You want the trophy wife, the corporate spouse who can play the game. And I'm just the teacher who doesn't know which fork to use at business dinners. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I felt anger rising in my chest, hot and sharp. I have been nothing but supportive of you. I've attended every work event, smiled through every boring conversation with your colleagues, made myself smaller so you could feel bigger. And this is how you repay me? By mocking me to your friends and flirting with your assistant? Derek stood up, his face flushing. You have no idea what kind of pressure I'm under. The board expects certain things. My position requires a certain image. I need a wife who understands that world. Then why did you marry me? The question hung in the air between us. Because, Derek said finally, I thought it wouldn't matter. I thought love would be enough. But maybe it's not. Maybe we want different things. There it was. The truth finally spoken out loud. You're right, I said calmly. We do want different things. You want someone who makes you look good at parties. Someone whose success reflects well on you. Someone on your level. Tasha. I want someone who respects me. Who values what I do, not what I earn. Who doesn't keep secrets and bring other women into our home. Derek's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He glanced at it and I saw Amber's name flash across the screen. You should get that, I said. It might be important. He hesitated, torn between answering and continuing our fight. Go ahead, Derek. Answer it. Show me exactly where your priorities are. He grabbed the phone and left the room. I heard his voice in the hallway, low and intimate in a way he hadn't spoken to me in months. I sat down on the bed and opened my laptop. Time to make some calls. My lawyer. My financial advisor. The building management company. Derek thought our marriage was ending because we wanted different things. He had no idea that it was ending because I'd finally decided to stop pretending. And when I was done, he'd learn exactly what level I'd been on all along. I didn't confront Derek again that morning. Instead, I went to work, taught my 23 third graders about fractions, supervised recess, and graded spelling tests. I smiled. I laughed. I pretended everything was normal. But beneath the surface I was remembering. Cataloging. Every small moment over the past year that should have told me the truth. It started about 14 months ago, subtle enough that I'd convinced myself I was imagining things. Derek had come home late from a conference in Seattle. I'd made dinner, waited up for him, excited to hear about his presentation. He barely looked at the food. You didn't have to do this, he'd said, loosening his tie. I ate on the plane. I wanted to. I missed you. Yeah. Listen, I'm exhausted. Mind if I just go to bed? I told myself it was jet lag. Business trips were tiring. It didn't mean anything. But then it happened again. And again. Late nights at the office became the norm. Weekend work sessions. Client dinners I wasn't invited to. Derek, constantly on his phone, texting with a small smile that never appeared when he was talking to me. Who are you texting? I'd asked once, trying to keep my tone light. Just work stuff. Amber needs some files. Amber. Always Amber. I'd met her briefly at a company holiday party. She was young, maybe 27, with long blonde hair and an MBA from Wharton. She'd shaken my hand with a grip that felt like a challenge, her eyes taking in my department store dress and sensible shoes. So you're the teacher, she'd said, smiling. Derek talks about you. All good things, I hope. He says you're very dedicated to your students. That's sweet. Sweet. Like I was a child playing pretend instead of a woman with a career. The comments had started around then. Small digs disguised as concern. You look tired, babe. Teaching wearing you out. Maybe you should buy some new clothes. Something more professional. It might help you feel better about yourself. The Johnson's wife is a lawyer. The Pattersons just got engaged to a doctor. I'm lucky you're not materialistic. You don't care about keeping up with them. Each comment had felt like a paper cut. Small enough to ignore individually, but collectively they'd left me bleeding. I tried to talk to Derek about it 6 months ago, after he'd suggested I skip his company's annual gala. Why? I'd asked hurt. I always go with you. I know, but this one's different. It's more formal. High-level investors, board members. Honestly, you might be bored. Let me be the judge of that. He'd sighed, that particular sigh that meant he was being patient with me. Tasha, these people are going to talk about market trends, portfolio management, acquisition strategies. It's not your world. I can hold a conversation about more than just crayons and playground disputes, Derek. I didn't say you couldn't. I'm just trying to save you from a boring evening. But fine if you want to come. I'd gone. I'd worn my nicest dress, done my hair, put on makeup. I'd smiled and made small talk with Derek's colleagues and their wives. And I'd watched Derek introduce me with decreasing enthusiasm as the night wore on. This is my wife, Natasha. She's a teacher. Always said with that slight apology in his tone, as if he were explaining away a character flaw. Meanwhile, Amber had been there, dazzling in a designer gown, discussing quarterly projections with the CFO, laughing at the CEO's jokes. She'd belonged in that world in a way I never would. I'd seen Derek watching her. Just glances, nothing obvious. But I'd known. The way you know when something fundamental has shifted, even if you can't name it yet. Now, sitting at my desk after my students had gone home, I pulled up my bank statements. Not my teaching salary account, the one Derek knew about. The other accounts. The ones he'd never seen. My main checking account, $234,567.89. My savings account, $2,456,890.21. My investment portfolio, $18,345,670.34. My real estate holdings, $11,987,543. Total net worth, $33,024,671.44. I stared at the numbers. My grandmother's legacy. Money I'd spent years learning to manage responsibly, investing wisely, growing steadily. Money I'd never needed to touch because my teaching salary covered my personal expenses and Derek covered everything else, thinking he was supporting me. I kept it secret for so long that sometimes I forgot it existed. I'd been so committed to being normal, to being loved for myself, that I'd erased an entire part of my identity. But Derek hadn't loved me for myself. He'd loved the version of me that made him feel superior. The struggling teacher who needed him. The simple girl who was grateful for his expensive dinners and his generous support of my little teaching job. My phone rang. Simone, my best friend since college. Hey girl, how was the anniversary party? I told her about it yesterday, excited to celebrate 5 years with Derek. That felt like a lifetime ago. Not great. Oh, what happened? I told her everything. The overheard conversation. The security footage. Derek's admission this morning. Simone was quiet for a long moment. I'm going to say something and you can't get mad at me. When has that ever stopped you? I never liked him. I know. No, I really never liked him. There was always something off. The way he talked about your career like it was a hobby. The way he'd correct you at dinner parties. That time he suggested you get a personal trainer because his company was doing a wellness initiative. I'd forgotten about that. Another paper cut. Why didn't you say something? I asked. Would you have listened? Probably not. I'd been in love, or what I'd thought was love. I'd wanted so badly for it to work. So what are you going to do? Simone asked. I have a meeting with my lawyer tomorrow. I'm filing for divorce. Good. You deserve so much better than that man. You know what kills me? He has no idea how lucky he was. If he knew about your money... Don't, I interrupted. If he knew about my money, he'd either love me for the wrong reasons or hate me for lying. Either way, it wouldn't be real. You didn't lie. You just protected yourself. Maybe. Or maybe I've been lying to both of us. Living this double life, pretending to be someone I'm not. You're a teacher. That's who you are. The money doesn't change that. But hiding it does. It changes everything. After we hung up, I sat in my empty classroom, surrounded by construction paper turkeys my students had made for Thanksgiving. In 2 weeks they'd be on break. In 2 weeks, Derek would be out of my house. I needed to be strategic about this. Derek's ego was his weakness. He thought he held all the cards because he thought he had all the money. When he discovered the truth, his first instinct would be anger. His second would be to try to take what was mine. But I'd protected myself. The prenup he'd insisted on worked both ways. We'd keep our separate assets. He'd get his savings and his stock options and his BMW. I'd get everything else. Everything he didn't know existed. I pulled up the security footage again, watching Derek and Amber enter the building. I'd made copies of everything. The hotel charges. The restaurant receipts. The Cartier receipt for a bracelet I'd never received. Adultery wasn't grounds for a better settlement in our state, but it was grounds for reputation destruction. And in Derek's world, reputation was everything. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. Working late. Don't wait up. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my email and started typing. To Catherine Mitchell, attorney at law from Natasha Coleman. Subject: urgent meeting request. Catherine, I need to move up our appointment. Can you meet tomorrow morning before school? I'm ready to proceed with filing. Also, I need your advice on property law. Specifically, what happens when someone has been living in a property they don't own, believing they're paying rent to the owner, when the owner is actually their spouse. I want him out. Immediately. And I want him to know exactly why. Thank you, Natasha. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. My phone rang immediately. Catherine, not waiting for tomorrow. Natasha, talk to me. What's happened? I told her everything, my voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me. Okay, Catherine said when I finished. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to document everything. Every charge, every late night, every lie. We're going to file for divorce citing irreconcilable differences. Clean, simple, fast. What about the penthouse? The penthouse is yours. The deed is in your grandmother's trust name, which you control. Derek has been a guest. Once you serve him with divorce papers, you can also serve him with eviction papers. Legally, you can give him 30 days, but given the circumstances, I'd recommend immediate eviction. Can we do that? We can argue that his infidelity and misrepresentation constitute grounds for immediate removal, especially since he brought another woman into your property without your knowledge or consent. A judge would likely side with you. How long will this take? If we move fast, 2 weeks to get everything filed and served. The divorce itself will take longer, but we can have him out of your property within days if you want. I want. Natasha, I have to ask. Are you sure about this? Once we start this process, there's no going back. I thought about Derek's face last night, laughing with his friends about my pathetic salary. His hand on Amber's waist. His admission that he wished he had a different wife. I've never been more sure of anything. All right then. Come by my office at 7 tomorrow morning. Bring all the evidence you have. We're going to make sure Derek Coleman regrets underestimating you. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my classroom. 5 years of marriage, ending not with sadness but with resolve. I'd spent so long trying to be enough for Derek. Small enough, simple enough, grateful enough. Tomorrow I'd start being enough for myself. And Derek would learn that the biggest mistake he'd made wasn't the affair. It was assuming I needed him at all. Friday evening, I told Derek I was going out with Simone. He barely looked up from his laptop. Okay, have fun. No questions about where we were going or when I'd be home. No interest in my life outside of our apartment. When had that happened? When had we stopped being a couple and become roommates who occasionally shared a bed? I drove to the restaurant Derek had charged to his credit card 3 times in the past month. Marcello's, an upscale Italian place downtown. The kind of restaurant where a single dinner could cost $300. I'd made a reservation for one, asking for a quiet table in the back. Perfect for watching without being seen. They arrived at 7:30. Derek opened the door for Amber, his hand settling on the small of her back as they entered. She wore a red dress that hugged every curve, her blonde hair falling in perfect waves. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. They looked like a couple. The hostess led them to a table by the window. Derek pulled out Amber's chair. They ordered wine. They laughed at something I couldn't hear. I watched from my corner table, my heart pounding but my hands steady. I'd brought my phone, propped discreetly against the water glass, recording everything. Their body language told me everything I needed to know. The way Amber leaned forward, touching Derek's hand across the table. The way he smiled at her, that real smile he used to give me. The way they looked at each other like they were the only 2 people in the room. Can I get you anything else? My server appeared, young and attentive. Just the check, thank you. I'd ordered a salad I'd barely touched. Food felt impossible when your entire life was unraveling. Derek and Amber were on their second glass of wine now. She said something that made him laugh, throwing his head back. I'd always loved his laugh. Now it felt like a betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. How's dinner with Simone? I stared at the message. The audacity. He was sitting 50 feet away with another woman, asking about my fake dinner plans. I typed back, good. Having a great time. Don't wait up. I watched him check his phone, smile and put it away. He said something to Amber, who rolled her eyes in what looked like sympathy. They ordered dessert. Tiramisu, which they shared, taking turns with the same spoon. Intimate. Comfortable. Like they'd done this 100 times before. Maybe they had. I paid my check and left before they saw me. I had everything I needed on video. Derek's lie about working late. Amber's unprofessional relationship with her married boss. The complete disrespect for our marriage. Instead of going home, I drove to Simone's apartment. She opened the door in pajamas, took one look at my face and pulled me inside. What happened? I showed her the video. That absolute piece of trash, Simone said when it finished. I can't believe he had the nerve to text you while he was sitting there with her. I can. I sat on her couch, suddenly exhausted. He doesn't think he's doing anything wrong. In his mind, I'm not enough, so he's entitled to look elsewhere. You're not enough? You're a saint. You've put up with his condescending attitude for 5 years while being secretly rich and never throwing it in his face. Most women would have ended this the first time he insulted their career. Maybe I should have. Hey. Simone sat next to me, taking my hand. Don't do that. Don't blame yourself for his choices. You gave him a real marriage. He's the one who betrayed it. I just don't understand. If he wanted someone like Amber, why marry me? Because he didn't want an equal, Tasha. He wanted someone he could control. Someone who'd be grateful for his attention and his money. Amber's successful on her own. She's a challenge. You were supposed to be easy. That's depressing. It's also liberating. Because now you know the truth. He never deserved you. And you get to walk away with your dignity and your bank account intact. I almost smiled. There is that. My phone buzzed again. Derek, heading home soon. See you there. Let me guess, Simone said. Still working late? Of course. What are you going to do? Nothing. Tonight I do nothing. I go home, I act normal, and I wait. Because Monday morning, everything changes. Monday? Monday's when Catherine files the papers. Monday's when Derek stops living in my penthouse. Monday's when his entire world falls apart. Simone grinned. I love it when you get scary. So what's the plan exactly? I told her everything. The divorce papers. The eviction notice. The evidence of the affair that I'd send to Derek's company HR department. The revelation about the penthouse ownership that I'd make sure all his friends knew about. You're going to destroy him, Simone said, sounding impressed. I'm going to tell the truth. If that destroys him, that's his problem. What about Amber? What about her? Are you going to confront her? I thought about it. The other woman. The one Derek apparently preferred. Part of me wanted to march back to that restaurant and throw my wine in her face. But what would that accomplish? She's not my problem, I said finally. Derek is. Amber's just a symptom of the bigger disease. Which is? Derek's ego. His need to feel superior. His inability to value anything he can't brag about. I stood up, grabbing my purse. I should go. If I'm not home when he gets there, he might get suspicious. Be careful, Tasha. I'm always careful. That's the problem. I've been so careful for so long that I forgot to be honest. I drove home slowly, rehearsing normalcy. When I entered the penthouse, Derek was already there, loosening his tie. Hey, how was Simone? Good. We went to that new tapas place on 5th. Nice. He wasn't really listening, already scrolling through his phone. I'm beat. Long day at the office. I bet. I hung up my coat, kept my voice light. How's the Tokyo deal going? Complicated. But we're making progress. Amber's been a huge help. I'm sure she has. If Derek heard the edge in my voice, he didn't acknowledge it. He was too busy typing out a text, probably to the woman he'd just spent the evening with. I'm going to take a shower, he said. Maybe we could watch a movie after? Sure. But we both knew we wouldn't. He'd fall asleep on the couch within 20 minutes, claiming exhaustion. I'd pretend not to notice that his phone kept buzzing with messages he smiled at before deleting. This was our marriage now. Polite strangers performing a relationship that had died without either of us officially acknowledging it. Except I was acknowledging it. I was just waiting for the right moment to make it official. Derek disappeared into the bathroom. I heard the shower start. I sat on the couch and opened my laptop, reviewing the documents Catherine had sent over. Divorce petition. Property disclosure. Financial statements. Everything was ready. I thought about Amber probably texting Derek right now, not knowing that her relationship with him was about to cost her job. I thought about Derek standing in my shower, using my water, completely oblivious to the fact that his entire life was a lie. Most of all, I thought about myself. About the woman I'd been when I met Derek, and the woman I'd become. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost myself in the effort to be loved. I'd minimized my success, hidden my wealth, played small so Derek could feel big. But I wasn't small. I'd never been small. Monday, everyone would see that. Derek emerged from the shower 20 minutes later, smelling like expensive cologne. You getting ready for bed? He asked. Soon. Cool. I'm going to catch up on some emails. He settled onto the couch with his laptop, typing furiously. Working, he'd say if I asked. But I knew better now. I knew exactly what he was working on, and it had nothing to do with business deals. I went into the bedroom and closed the door. I looked around at the space I'd created, the bed I'd bought, the art on the walls I'd chosen, the view I'd purchased, all of it mine. In 3 days Derek would be gone, and I would finally be free. Catherine's office smelled like leather and coffee. It was 7 in the morning on Monday and I'd barely slept the night before. You look tired, Catherine observed, sliding a mug across her desk to me. Couldn't sleep. Second thoughts. No. Just ready for this to be over. Catherine opened a folder, revealing stacks of papers. Then let's make it official. I've prepared everything. The divorce petition, the property disclosure, and the eviction notice. Once you sign, I can have these served to Derek today. Today. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for the pen. You said you wanted to move fast. I can have a process server at his office by noon if you approve. I thought about Derek, sitting in his corner office with the view of the harbor, probably texting Amber between meetings. He'd be blindsided. Humiliated. Good. Do it. Before you sign, let's review everything so you understand exactly what's happening. Catherine pulled out the first document. This is the divorce petition. We're filing on grounds of irreconcilable differences. Standard language. Because of the prenup Derek insisted on, assets will remain separate. Which means he gets nothing of mine and I get nothing of his. Exactly. His savings, his car, his stock options, all his. Your trust fund, your properties, your investments, all yours. What about the penthouse? That's where it gets interesting. Catherine smiled. The penthouse deed is in the name of the Loretta Washington Family Trust, which you control as sole beneficiary and trustee. Derek has been living there under the assumption that he was paying rent, but legally, he's been a guest in your property. The money he gave you each month for rent was actually a gift, since you own the property outright. Can he claim any right to it? No. He has no legal claim to property owned by a trust established before your marriage. And since he believed he was renting, not buying, he can't claim any equity or ownership stake. I felt a weight lift from my chest. So the penthouse is definitely mine. Without question. Now the eviction notice. Catherine pulled out another document. Normally you'd have to give 30 days. But given the evidence of his affair and the fact that he brought another woman into your property without your knowledge or consent, we can argue for immediate eviction on grounds of violation of trust and potential damage to the property owner's emotional well-being. Will a judge agree? Judge Martinez is hearing emergency motions today. She's fair but doesn't have patience for cheaters. I think we have a good shot. What about his job? Catherine's smile widened. That's the beautiful part. I did some research on Derek's company policies. They have a strict fraternization clause. Relationships between supervisors and subordinates must be disclosed to HR and approved by the board. Derek and Amber have been hiding their relationship, which violates company policy. How do you know they've been hiding it? I called the HR department, claiming to be doing a routine policy verification for an unrelated matter. Asked about any disclosed workplace relationships in the executive suite. Derek's name never came up. So if someone were to report the affair, Derek and Amber would both be subject to disciplinary action, possibly termination, given Derek's senior position and the clear conflict of interest. I thought about it. Derek loved his job. His identity was wrapped up in being a successful executive. Losing that would devastate him more than losing me ever could. What happens next? I asked. You sign everything. I file with the court. A process server delivers the papers to Derek at his office. Simultaneously, another process server delivers eviction papers. You change the locks on the penthouse. Derek has until 5 p.m. to collect his personal belongings under police supervision. Police supervision? Standard procedure for emergency evictions. Protects both parties. Ensures nothing is damaged or stolen. When can I change the locks? The moment the eviction notice is served. I have a locksmith on standby. He can be at the penthouse by 1 p.m. Everything was happening so fast. 2 hours ago I'd been married. By this afternoon I'd be separated and living alone. What about the affair evidence? I asked. When do we use that? That depends on you. We can include it in the divorce filing, which becomes public record. Or we can hold it in reserve, Use it only if Derek contests the divorce or tries to claim any of your assets. And the company policy violation? Again, your choice. I can draft an anonymous report to HR, complete with evidence. Or you can make the report yourself. Either way, Derek's company will have to investigate. I signed the divorce papers, my signature surprisingly steady. Then the property disclosure. Then the eviction notice. One more thing, Catherine said. Are you prepared for Derek's reaction? He's going to be angry. Probably vindictive. Men like him don't take rejection well, especially when it comes with public humiliation. I can handle Derek. I'm sure you can. But I want you to be safe. Do you have somewhere else you can stay for a few days? Just until things settle down? The penthouse is my home. I'm not leaving. Then at least inform building security that Derek is no longer authorized to enter. Have them remove him from the access list immediately. I will. Catherine slid a business card across the desk. This is my personal cell. If Derek shows up, if he threatens you, if anything happens that makes you uncomfortable, you call me immediately. Understood. Understood. Good. Now go to work. Teach your students. Have a normal day. And let me handle the rest. I left Catherine's office at 7:45, making it to school with 15 minutes to spare. My students filtered in, rowdy and excited about an upcoming field trip. I helped them with their morning work, settled an argument about crayons, and reminded everyone that we don't run with scissors. Normal. Everything perfectly normal. Except my phone was in my purse, volume on high, waiting for the call that would change everything. It came at 12:15 during lunch. It's done, Catherine said. Derek has been served. The process server said he went white as a sheet when he read the papers. What did he say? He asked if this was a joke. The server said no, it's very real. Derek tried calling you immediately. I know. I've got 15 missed calls. Don't answer. Not yet. Let him sit with it. The eviction notice is being served right now. Locksmith is on his way to the penthouse. By the time Derek gets off work, he won't be able to get in. Good. Tasha, he's going to try to talk to you. To explain, to apologize, to convince you to reconsider. You need to be ready for that. I am ready. Are you sure? Because 5 years is a long time. It's natural to feel conflicted, to wonder if you're making the right choice. I'm not conflicted, I said and realized it was true. I'm angry, Catherine. I'm hurt. But I'm not conflicted. Derek made his choice when he brought Amber into my home. When he mocked me to his friends. When he wished for a different wife. He ended this marriage. I'm just making it official. Alright then. Call me if you need anything. Otherwise, I'll see you in court on Friday for the emergency hearing. The rest of the school day passed in a blur. I went through the motions of teaching, but my mind was elsewhere. Imagining Derek's face when he read the divorce petition. His shock when he realized the penthouse wasn't his. His panic when he understood that everything he'd taken for granted was disappearing. At 3:30, my students packed up and filed out. I was erasing the whiteboard when my phone rang again. Derek for the 20th time. This time I answered. Natasha, what the hell is going on? His voice was tight with anger and confusion. I'm divorcing you, Derek. I thought the papers were clear. You can't just, we need to talk about this. Face to face. I'm coming to the school. Don't. I'm not discussing this with you. Tasha, please. I know I messed up. I know you're upset about what you heard at the party. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through it. There's nothing to work through. Yes, there is. We're married. You can't just throw away 5 years because of one stupid comment. It wasn't one comment, Derek. It was a pattern. Years of you belittling me, embarrassing me, making me feel small. And then there's Amber. Silence. It's not what you think. I have video of you two at Marcello's on Friday night. I have your credit card statements showing dinners and hotels. I have security footage of you bringing her to the penthouse. So please tell me what I'm supposed to think. You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. This is insane. You're throwing away our marriage over some harmless dinners. They weren't harmless, Derek. And even if they were, it doesn't change the fundamental problem. You don't respect me. You never have. That's not true. Then why did you tell Patterson you wished you had a more ambitious wife? Why do you constantly make jokes about my salary? Why do you introduce me at parties like you're apologizing for my existence? He faltered. I didn't mean those things the way they sounded. Yes, you did. You meant every word. And that's why we're done. Where am I supposed to go, Natasha? The eviction notice says I have to be out by 5. That's in an hour. All my stuff is in the penthouse. You can collect your personal belongings under police supervision. Everything else stays. What do you mean, everything else? That's my furniture, It's not yours, Derek. None of it is yours. What are you talking about? I paid for that apartment for 5 years. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. No, Derek. You didn't. You paid me $800 a month, which I accepted as a gift. But you never paid rent because the penthouse isn't a rental. It's owned outright by the Loretta Washington Family Trust, which I control. Which means I own it. I've always owned it. The silence on the other end was absolute. You, what? I own the penthouse, Derek. I bought it 6 months before we met. The deed is in my name. Or technically in my trust's name. But the point stands. That apartment you've been bragging about to your friends? That luxury penthouse you've been using to impress clients? Was never yours. It was always mine. That's impossible. You couldn't afford a $4 million penthouse on a teacher's salary? You're right. But I don't just have a teacher's salary. I have a $30 million trust fund. I have investment properties all over the city. I have a portfolio that generates more in passive income each year than you make in salary. You're lying. Check the deed yourself. Check the trust documents Catherine filed with the divorce petition. It's all there, Derek. Every property I own. Every asset you knew nothing about. Because I kept it from you. Because I wanted you to love me for me, not for my money. 30 million. 33 million, actually. Give or take a few $100,000 depending on the market. I could hear him breathing, could practically see his mind racing, recalculating everything he thought he knew. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to be sure you loved me. Turns out you didn't. You loved the idea of me. The grateful teacher who needed you. The simple wife who made you feel successful. But the real me? The woman with her own wealth and power? You never wanted to know her. Tasha, if I'd known. If you'd known what? You would have treated me better? That's exactly the problem, Derek. Your respect shouldn't depend on my bank account. It should be inherent. But it never was. We can start over. Now that I know the truth. Now that you know the truth, you want to stay? Prove my point, why don't you? Goodbye, Derek. My lawyer will be in touch about finalizing everything. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But I felt lighter than I had in years. The truth was out. Derek knew exactly who I was and what I'd been hiding. And now he'd have to live with the knowledge that he'd thrown away something real for something fake. He'd traded a multimillionaire who loved him for an assistant who loved his position. That was his burden to carry, not mine. I grabbed my bag and headed for the parking lot. Time to go home to my home and reclaim my space. The revenge was just beginning. Building security called me from the lobby at 4:45. Ms. Washington? Mr. Coleman is here. He's requesting access to the penthouse, but his name has been removed from the authorized list per your instructions. Don't let him up. He can collect his belongings under police supervision, as stated in the eviction notice. He's quite insistent, ma'am, and he's causing a scene. I could hear Derek in the background, his voice raised. That's my home. You can't keep me out of my own apartment. I'll be right down, I told security. I took the elevator to the lobby, steeling myself. Through the glass doors, I could see Derek pacing in the entrance area, his suit rumpled, his hair disheveled. This wasn't the polished executive I'd married. This was a man coming undone. 2 police officers stood nearby, looking bored. Catherine had arranged for them to supervise the collection of Derek's belongings, standard procedure for evictions. Natasha. Derek rushed toward me the moment I stepped out of the elevator. Thank God. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding. Tell them to let me up. It's not a misunderstanding, Derek. You've been served with an eviction notice. You're no longer authorized to access the penthouse without supervision. This is ridiculous. That's my home. No, it's not. It's my property and you're no longer welcome there. One of the officers stepped forward. Ma'am, is this the individual named in the eviction notice? Yes, officer. Derek Coleman. And you're the property owner, Natasha Washington? I am. The officer turned to Derek. Sir, you have the right to collect personal belongings under our supervision. You have 30 minutes. Items must be limited to clothing, personal effects, and electronic devices. No furniture, no artwork, nothing that could be disputed as marital property. Marital property? It's my furniture. I paid for everything. Actually, I said calmly, if you check your credit card statements, you'll find that I paid for most of the furniture. The couch, the dining table, the bedroom set all purchased with my credit card from my accounts. The only things you paid for are your clothes and your electronics. Derek's face went red. You're seriously going to nickel and dime me over furniture? I'm going to keep what's mine. Just like you would. Officers, Derek appealed to them, this is my wife. She's upset about a misunderstanding. We can work this out privately. Sir, the officer said patiently, do you have a legal right to occupy the property in question? I've lived there for 5 years. That's not what I asked. Do you have a lease agreement? Is your name on the deed? Do you have any legal documentation proving residence rights? Derek looked at me, his jaw working. No. But then you're a guest who's been asked to leave. You can either collect your belongings peacefully, or we can arrest you for trespassing. Your choice. The fight drained out of Derek's posture. Fine. Let's get this over with. We rode the elevator in tense silence, the two officers between us like a barrier. When we entered the penthouse, Derek looked around as if seeing it for the first time. How long? He asked quietly. How long what? How long have you owned this place? Since before we met. My grandmother's trust purchased it as an investment property. And you let me believe I was supporting you. That I was paying for this apartment. You wanted to believe it. It made you feel important. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I turned to face him fully. You spent 5 years making me feel inadequate. 5 years of comments about my salary, my career, my worth. You introduced me to your colleagues like I was an embarrassment. You told your boss you wished you had a different wife. And now you want to talk about fair. I made mistakes. I know that. But you lied to me about who you are. I protected myself. Big difference. Derek moved through the apartment, pulling clothes from closets, gathering his laptop and phone chargers. The officers watched him passively. I stood by the window, looking out at the city I'd claimed as mine long before Derek entered my life. What about this? Derek held up a framed photo from our wedding day. We looked happy in it. Young, hopeful, in love. Take it. He hesitated, then set it face down on the counter. I don't want it. Neither do I. 23 minutes later, Derek had filled 4 suitcases and 2 boxes. His entire life in my penthouse reduced to luggage. Is there anything else? One officer asked. No, Derek said. He looked at me. Can we talk? Just for a minute? Alone. I nodded to the officers. Wait in the hallway, please. They stepped outside, leaving us alone in what used to be our home. I'm sorry, Derek said. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I'm sorry for Amber. I'm sorry for all of it. Okay. Okay? That's it. What else do you want me to say, Derek? That I forgive you? That we can work through this? We can't. This isn't about Amber or about one bad night. This is about fundamental incompatibility. You need someone who makes you look good. I need someone who values me for who I am. We're not those people for each other. But I do value you. Now that I know. Now that you know I have money, you value me. That's exactly the problem. Derek ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd seen 1,000 times. What happens now? Now you leave. You find a place to stay. We proceed with the divorce. In a few months, we'll both move on with our lives. What about my job? This gets out. Your job is your problem, Derek. Not mine. Are you going to tell them? About Amber? I considered lying. Considered letting him think he was safe. But I was done with lies. Your company has a fraternization policy. You violated it. Whether they find out from me or from someone else, they'll find out eventually. So you are going to tell them. I'm going to do what's necessary to protect myself legally. If that includes documenting your policy violations, then yes. That'll destroy my career. You should have thought about that before you started sleeping with your assistant. Derek picked up his suitcases, his movements jerky with anger. You know what? I'm glad this is happening. I'm glad I found out who you really are. This cold, calculating person who's been lying to me for 5 years. I'm cold? I'm calculating? I felt my own anger rising. You cheated on me, Derek. You brought another woman into my home. You mocked me to your colleagues and your boss. But I'm the villain because I protected my assets. You made a fool of me. No, you made a fool of yourself. I just stopped helping you do it. The officers reappeared in the doorway. Sir? Time's up. Derek grabbed his last box and headed for the door. He paused at the threshold, looking back at me one more time. I really did love you, he said. At the beginning. I know. I loved you too. But love isn't enough when there's no respect. He left. The officers followed. The door closed behind them with a finality that echoed through the now empty space. I stood in the silence of my penthouse, surrounded by furniture I'd chosen, art I'd purchased, space I'd created. For the first time in 5 years, it felt completely mine. I called Catherine. It's done, I said. He's gone. How are you holding up? Better than expected. What's next? I've drafted the anonymous report to Derek's HR department. It details the relationship with Amber, includes timestamps from your security footage, and notes the violation of company policy. I can send it tonight. Do it. Are you sure? Once this goes to HR, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. Derek needs to face consequences for his actions. Not just with me but professionally. All right. I'll send it from an anonymous email account. By tomorrow morning, Derek's company will be investigating. Good. After hanging up, I ordered takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving. I curled up on my couch and watched the sunset paint the city in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere out there, Derek was probably at a hotel or maybe at Amber's place, licking his wounds and planning his next move. Let him plan. Let him strategize. It wouldn't change anything. The trap was set. By tomorrow, his company would know about the affair. By Friday, the divorce would be official. By next month, he'd be a memory. I was free. Truly, completely free. And it felt better than I'd ever imagined. The company gala was supposed to be Derek's crowning moment. He'd spent weeks talking about it, a black tie event celebrating the company's acquisition of a major competitor. As head of business development, Derek had been instrumental in the deal. He'd expected accolades, maybe even a promotion. Catherine had suggested I attend. Are you serious? I'd asked when she called Wednesday morning. Completely. You're still technically married. You have every right to be there. And more importantly, Derek won't expect it. He'll be off guard, vulnerable. It's the perfect opportunity to make your position clear publicly. That seems dramatic. Dramatic gets results. Derek humiliated you in front of his colleagues. Return the favor. I thought about it for all of 2 seconds before agreeing. The gala was Saturday evening at the Riverside Hotel, the kind of venue with crystal chandeliers and servers in white gloves. I'd hired a stylist, bought a new dress, a stunning deep blue gown that cost more than Derek's monthly salary. I'd had my hair done professionally, my makeup applied by an artist who worked with celebrities. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. This wasn't the frumpy teacher Derek had been embarrassed by. This was the woman I'd hidden for 5 years. This was the real me. Simone came with me for moral support. She wore a silver dress that made her look like she'd stepped off a red carpet. You ready for this? She asked as our car pulled up to the hotel. More than ready. The ballroom was already full when we arrived. Derek's colleagues and their spouses mingled near the bar. I spotted Derek's boss, Patterson, holding court with the board of directors. And there, in the center of the room, was Derek himself. He wore a custom tuxedo, his hair perfectly styled. Amber stood next to him in a white dress that was just a bit too bridal for a corporate event. They looked like a couple posing for a magazine spread. Derek hadn't seen me yet. He was laughing at something Amber said, his hand resting possessively on her waist. He brought her as his date, Simone hissed. That's bold, considering HR is investigating him. Maybe he thinks it'll blow over. Or maybe he's an idiot. I took a breath and walked into the ballroom. Heads turned. Conversations paused. I felt the weight of everyone's attention as I made my way toward the bar. Natasha. Thomas Bradford appeared at my elbow, his wife Jennifer beside him. They'd been at the anniversary party, part of the group that had laughed at my teaching salary. I didn't expect to see you here. Why wouldn't I be here? I'm Derek's wife. Right. Of course. You just look different. Do I? Maybe you're just seeing me clearly for the first time. Jennifer's eyes widened. That dress is gorgeous. Where did you get it? A boutique downtown. Elise Couture. I love that place. But isn't it a bit, she stopped herself, but I knew what she'd been about to say. A bit expensive for a teacher's salary. A bit what? I asked pleasantly. Nothing. Never mind. You look beautiful. Across the room, Derek had spotted me. His face went pale, then red. He said something to Amber, who looked confused, then started walking toward me. Natasha, what are you doing here? Attending the gala. You told me about it weeks ago, remember? I thought I'd support my husband on his big night. We need to talk. Privately. Actually, I think we need to talk publicly. I raised my voice slightly, drawing the attention of the people nearby. After all, you had no problem discussing our marriage publicly at our anniversary party. Turnabout is fair play. Derek's eyes darted around the room. Tasha, don't. Don't what? Don't mention that you told Patterson you wished you had a different wife? Don't bring up the fact that you've been having an affair with your assistant? Don't talk about how you've been living in my penthouse rent-free for 5 years while making fun of my salary. The conversations around us had stopped. People were staring. Your penthouse. Patterson had materialized from somewhere, looking confused. Derek said he bought that place with a signing bonus. Derek lied. I pulled out my phone, displaying the property deed Catherine had sent me. The penthouse at 1500 Riverside Drive is owned by the Loretta Washington Family Trust. I'm the sole trustee and beneficiary. Derek has been a guest. An ungrateful, unfaithful guest. I could see the confusion spreading through the crowd. Derek's carefully constructed image was crumbling in real time. Is this true? Patterson looked at Derek. You've been lying about owning that property? I didn't. It's complicated. Natasha, please, you're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? I laughed. Derek, I own a penthouse worth $4 million. I have a trust fund worth $33 million. I own investment properties across 3 states. The only embarrassing thing here is that you never bothered to know who you married. Amber had pushed through the crowd, her face white. Derek, what is she talking about? Amber, you must be Derek's assistant. And his affair partner. How nice to finally meet you properly. I turned to Patterson. You might want to check your company's fraternization policy. I believe relationships between supervisors and subordinates require disclosure to HR. Patterson's face hardened. Derek, is this true? I can explain. Sir, a woman in a business suit approached Patterson, whispering in his ear. His expression went from confused to furious. Derek Coleman, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. Amber Lawson, you're suspended pending investigation. Both of you will receive official notification Monday morning. What? You can't. This is my deal. This acquisition was my project. Derek's voice had gone shrill. This acquisition is the company's project. And you're no longer part of this company. Please leave before we have you removed by force. Security appeared, 2 large men in suits. They flanked Derek and Amber, who looked like she might cry. This is because of her? Amber hissed at me. You bitter, vindictive. I'm vindictive? You slept with a married man in his wife's home. I'm just telling the truth about it. Derek grabbed my arm, his grip tight. You did this on purpose. You planned this whole thing to destroy me. No, Derek. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. Security pulled Derek away, leading him and Amber toward the exit. The ballroom had gone completely silent, everyone watching the spectacle. Patterson cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, please accept my apologies for that disruption. Let's continue with the celebration. The conversations resumed, but now they were all about me and Derek. I could hear the whispers, see the curious glances. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed, Simone breathed beside me. You just destroyed him in front of everyone who matters. I just told the truth. Girl, you did more than that. You ended his career, his relationship, and his reputation in under 5 minutes. I'm taking notes. Jennifer Bradford approached, her expression a mix of awe and fear. Natasha, I owe you an apology. We all do. At the anniversary party, when we laughed about your salary, we had no idea. That I was rich? Would it have mattered if I wasn't? Should my salary determine whether I deserve respect? No. No, of course not. I'm sorry. We were horrible. Yes, you were. But at least now you know. I hope the next time you meet someone, you won't judge them by their bank account or their job title. Jennifer nodded and retreated. Other people approached, some to apologize, others to introduce themselves, still others to ask questions I didn't answer. I stayed for exactly 1 hour. Long enough to make my point, short enough to leave them wanting more. Then Simone and I left, walking out of the hotel into the cool night air. Where's Derek going to go? Simone asked as our car pulled away. I don't know. I don't care. What about Amber? Also don't know, also don't care. They made their choices. Now they live with them. My phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. I'm hearing reports from the gala. Did you really show the property deed to Patterson? I replied, yes. Everything went exactly as planned. You're terrifying. I love it. See you in court Monday for the final divorce hearing. The divorce hearing was a formality. Derek didn't contest anything. He sat across from me in the courtroom, wearing a cheap suit I didn't recognize, looking defeated. The judge reviewed the documents, asked a few questions and granted the divorce. 5 years of marriage dissolved in 15 minutes. "Do you have anything you'd like to say to each other?" the judge asked. Derek looked at me. "I'm sorry. For everything." "I know. Do you forgive me?" "I release you, Derek. From this marriage, from any obligation to me. But forgiveness? That's not something you're entitled to just because you apologized. That's something you have to earn." The judge banged her gavel. "Divorce granted. You're both free to go." Free. That was exactly what I was. I walked out of the courthouse alone. Derek's lawyer had tried to negotiate for some of the furniture, for a share of the penthouse, for anything he could claim. Catherine had shut him down at every turn. Derek left the marriage with exactly what he'd brought into it. His clothes, his car, his damaged reputation. And me? I left with everything I'd always had. My properties, my money, my dignity. But more than that, I left with the knowledge that I'd stood up for myself. I'd refused to be small. I'd refused to accept mistreatment just to keep the peace. I'd chosen myself. And that felt like the biggest victory of all. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Amber at a coffee shop near the courthouse. She was sitting alone at a corner table, nursing a latte and scrolling through her phone. She looked different without the designer clothes and professional makeup. Tired. Ordinary. She saw me at the same time I saw her. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she stood, grabbing her purse like she was going to run. "Wait," I heard myself say. "Can we talk?" "I don't think that's a good idea." "Probably not. But I have questions and you're the only one who can answer them." Amber hesitated, then sat back down. I bought my coffee and joined her. "If you're here to gloat," she started. "I'm not. I'm just trying to understand." "Understand what?" "Why? Why him? Why someone else's husband?" Amber stared into her coffee. "You want the truth? Please." "I didn't mean for it to happen. It started out as just work. Derek was my boss. He was smart, ambitious, everything I wanted to be. We'd work late together and he'd tell me about his projects, his goals. He made me feel like I was part of something important. And then one night we were working on the Tokyo deal and he kissed me. I should have stopped it. I knew he was married. But he told me you two were basically over. That you didn't understand him. That you were holding him back. And you believed him. I wanted to believe him. Because by then I'd already fallen for him. Or at least for the version of him I'd created in my head. I sipped my coffee processing this. Did you know he was lying about the penthouse? No. He told me he'd bought it. That he was successful enough to afford a place like that. I was impressed. Amber laughed bitterly. Turns out he was living off you the whole time and I was too stupid to question it. You weren't stupid. You were young and he was good at lying. That's generous of you. I'm not being generous. I'm being honest. Derek lied to both of us. The difference is I was married to him. You were just collateral damage. Amber looked up at me, her eyes red. I lost my job because of him. My reputation is destroyed. No tech company will hire me now. Everyone thinks I'm the woman who slept her way to the top. What are you going to do? I don't know. Move to another city, maybe? Start over. My mom lives in Portland. I might go stay with her for a while, figure things out. I'm sorry, I said, surprising myself. Why would you be sorry? I'm the one who slept with your husband. You are. And that was wrong. But Derek pursued you. He lied to you. He used you to make himself feel important. In a way, we were both victims of his ego. I don't deserve your sympathy. Maybe not. But I'm giving it anyway. Not because I forgive what you did, but because I understand what it's like to believe someone's lies. Amber wiped her eyes. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Truly. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway. And I have to live with that. We all have to live with our choices. I left Amber at the coffee shop, feeling oddly lighter. I didn't forgive her exactly. But I understood that she wasn't a villain. She was just a young woman who'd made bad choices because a manipulative man had made them seem reasonable. Derek was the problem. Derek had always been the problem. My phone rang as I was driving home. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Washington? This is Detective Martinez with the Financial Crimes Division. I'm calling about Derek Coleman. My stomach dropped. What about him? We've been investigating some irregularities in his expense reports at his former company. It appears he may have been inflating travel expenses and pocketing the difference. We'd like to ask you some questions about household finances during your marriage. Of course. When? Would tomorrow morning work? 9 a.m. at the precinct. I'll be there. I called Catherine immediately. Derek's being investigated for financial fraud? Interesting. I hadn't heard that. Do you know anything about it? No. We kept separate finances. He paid some bills, I paid others. I never looked at his expense reports. Well, if he was committing fraud, that's between him and his former employer. You're divorced now. His legal troubles aren't your problem. I know. It's just, part of me feels bad for him. Don't. Derek Coleman is a grown man who made his choices. He lied to you, he cheated on you, and apparently he was stealing from his employer. He deserves whatever consequences come his way. You're right. I'm always right. Now go home, have some wine, and stop worrying about your ex-husband. You have better things to do with your life. She was right. I did have better things to do. I spent the next few weeks throwing myself into work and into my foundation plans. I'd always wanted to do something meaningful with my grandmother's money, and now seemed like the perfect time. I met with financial advisors, education experts, and nonprofit consultants. Together, we created the Loretta Washington Education Foundation, dedicated to providing scholarships and resources for underprivileged students. Your grandmother would be so proud, my advisor said when we finalized the paperwork. I hope so. She always said money was only valuable if you used it to help others. Sounds like a wise woman. The wisest. The foundation became my passion project. I interviewed scholarship candidates, visited schools, met with principals and teachers. I saw firsthand how much difference money could make in a child's education. New books, updated technology, art programs that would have been cut without funding. This was what my wealth was for. Not luxury cars or designer clothes or impressing people at parties. This, making real change in real lives. 6 weeks after the divorce, I got a text from an unknown number. It's Derek. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I need help. I'm being evicted from my apartment. I have nowhere to go. Please. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to tell him to figure it out himself, the way I'd had to figure out life after discovering his betrayal. But I wasn't cruel. I was just done being his safety net. I replied, I can't help you, Derek. You need to contact family or friends. I'm not your wife anymore. I'm not your solution. I don't have anyone else. That's not my problem. You made your choices. Now you live with them. Don't contact me again. I blocked the number. Simone called that evening. You okay? You sound off. Derek texted me. He's being evicted. Good. Simone. What? He destroyed your trust, humiliated you, and cheated on you. Why should you care if he's homeless? I don't care. But I also don't want to be the kind of person who takes joy in someone else's suffering. There's a difference between taking joy in his suffering and refusing to rescue him from the consequences of his own actions. You're not responsible for Derek anymore. You never were, really. He's a grown man. Let him figure it out. You're right. I'm always right. Now come over. I made tacos and we're going to watch trashy reality TV and not think about your terrible ex-husband. I went. We ate tacos. We watched people make bad decisions on television and judge them harshly. It was exactly what I needed. That night, lying in my bed in my penthouse, I felt at peace. Derek was somewhere out there, struggling with the consequences of his choices. Amber was in Portland, rebuilding her life. And I was here, in the home I'd always owned, living the life I'd always deserved. The revenge hadn't been about destruction. It had been about truth. I'd spent 5 years hiding who I was so Derek could feel big. I'd made myself small so he could feel important. I'd lied by omission because I wanted to be loved for myself. But the biggest lie had been the one I told myself, that Derek's love was worth the sacrifice. It wasn't. No love is worth losing yourself. And now, finally, I'd found myself again. 4 months after the divorce, I opened the Loretta Washington Education Foundation's first scholarship reception. 50 students from across the city attended, each receiving a full scholarship for college tuition, books, housing, everything they needed. I stood at the podium looking out at their faces. Young people who'd worked hard, overcome obstacles, dreamed big despite limited resources. This was my grandmother's legacy. This was what true wealth meant. My grandmother used to tell me that education is the only thing nobody can take away from you, I said. She built her fortune from nothing, investing wisely, taking risks, and never forgetting where she came from. Today, I'm honored to carry on her mission by investing in all of you. The applause was thunderous. Parents wiped tears. Students hugged each other. One girl, a senior named Brielle who wanted to be a doctor, approached me after the ceremony. Ms. Washington, thank you. This scholarship, it's everything. My mom works 3 jobs and I was going to community college because it's all we could afford. But now I can go to state university. I can actually become a doctor. You're going to be an amazing doctor, Brielle. Promise me you'll remember this moment when things get hard. Remember that people believe in you. I promise. Watching Brielle rejoin her family, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: pride. Not in having money but in using it well. Not in what I owned but in what I gave. Simone found me by the refreshment table. You're glowing. Am I? You are. This is good for you. Helping these kids, building something meaningful. It's who you were always meant to be. I wish I'd done it sooner. You did it when you were ready. That's what matters. The foundation kept me busy through the summer. I visited schools, met with counselors, reviewed applications. I also started teaching again, not full-time, but one class of advanced students who needed extra challenges. Teaching had always been my calling. The money from my grandmother gave me the freedom to teach without worrying about bills, but it was the work itself that fulfilled me. In August, I ran into Thomas Bradford at a restaurant. He was dining with his wife, and when he saw me, he looked uncomfortable. Natasha. How are you? I'm good, Thomas. How are you? Good. Listen, about the anniversary party, I've been meaning to apologize. What I said about your salary, the way we all talked about you, it was inexcusable. It was. I'm sorry. Truly. Jennifer and I have been doing a lot of thinking about how we treat people. We've been volunteering at a literacy program, actually, teaching adults to read. It's made me realize how important educators are. That's great, Thomas. Seriously. We need more people willing to give their time. Maybe we could donate to your foundation? I'd like to help if I can. I'd appreciate that. He smiled, relieved. You know, Derek calls me sometimes, asking if the company has any openings, if I know anyone who's hiring. I told him I couldn't help. Where is he now? Last I heard, he's working at a call center. Sales, I think. He lost his apartment and he's living with his brother across town. I felt a pang of something. Not sympathy exactly, but not satisfaction either. I hope he figures things out, I said. Do you mean that? I do. Hating Derek doesn't serve me. I'm moving forward. He needs to do the same. You're more gracious than most people would be. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of carrying anger. It's heavy, you know? Thomas nodded. For what it's worth, I think Derek realized what he lost. Too late, obviously. But he realized it. Good. Hopefully he'll do better next time. I left the restaurant feeling lighter. Derek's struggles weren't my responsibility, but I didn't wish him harm. I just wished him away. Out of my thoughts, out of my life, out of my story. In September, my class of advanced students started a project about social justice and education equity. One student, a brilliant boy named Travis, interviewed me about the foundation. Why do you do it? He asked, his phone recording our conversation. You could just keep the money, buy fancy stuff, travel the world. Why give it away? Because money is just a tool, I said. It's not the goal. The goal is to live a meaningful life. To help people. To make the world a little better than you found it. My grandmother understood that. She taught me that wealth means nothing if you're not wealthy in spirit. That's deep, Ms. Washington. I laughed. It's true though. The happiest I've ever been wasn't when I had the most money. It was when I used what I had to help others. Travis published his project as an article in the school newspaper. It got picked up by the local news. Suddenly, I was being interviewed about the foundation, about education funding, about the importance of giving back. A reporter asked about Derek. Your ex-husband claimed he was the successful one in your marriage. How does it feel to prove him wrong? I didn't set out to prove anyone wrong, I said carefully. I set out to live authentically. Derek's perception of success and mine are different. I measure success by impact, not income. By the lives I touch, not the property I own. In that sense, I've always been successful. I just stopped hiding it. The interview aired that evening. My phone exploded with messages. Former students, old colleagues, people I hadn't talked to in years, all reaching out to congratulate me or share their own stories of overcoming adversity. One message stood out. From someone named Jerome Walker. Hi Natasha, I saw your interview. I run a nonprofit that provides mental health services to underserved communities. I'd love to talk about potential collaboration between our organizations. I looked him up. Jerome Walker was a licensed social worker who'd founded a nonprofit after losing his brother to suicide. His organization provided free counseling to families who couldn't afford private therapy. We met for coffee the next week. Jerome was tall, with kind eyes and a gentle manner. We talked about our work, our passions, our goals for the future. "What made you start your foundation?" he asked. "Honestly? Divorce. I'd been hiding my wealth for years, and when my marriage ended, I realized I didn't want to hide anymore. I wanted to use what I had to make a difference. That takes courage. Maybe. Or maybe it just takes reaching a breaking point." Jerome smiled. "Either way, I admire it. Most people with money hoard it. You're sharing yours. My grandmother always said wealth is wasted on the wealthy." Smart woman. The smartest. We met several more times over the following weeks, ostensibly to discuss collaboration between our organizations. But our conversations wandered beyond workbooks we'd read, places we'd traveled, dreams we had for the future. "Can I ask you something personal?" Jerome said one evening over dinner. "Sure. Are you dating anyone?" My heart skipped. "No. I haven't really thought about it since the divorce. Would you want to? Think about it, I mean. With me specifically." I looked at him, really looked at him. Jerome wasn't flashy like Derek. He didn't wear designer suits or drive expensive cars. But he had something Derek never had: genuine kindness. Real integrity. A life built on service rather than ego. "Yes," I heard myself say. "I think I would." Jerome's smile lit up his entire face. "Good. Because I've been wanting to ask for weeks, but I wasn't sure if it was too soon." "It's not too soon. It's exactly the right time." We started dating slowly, carefully. Jerome had been divorced too, so he understood the need to take things at our own pace. He didn't care about my money, he had his own stable life and career. He didn't need me to be anything other than who I was. It was refreshing. Revolutionary even. To be with someone who valued me for my mind, my heart, my passions, rather than my bank account or my appearance. "You're different from anyone I've ever dated," Jerome said one evening as we walked along the river. "How so?" "You're confident. Genuinely confident, not fake confident. You know who you are and you're not apologizing for it. I spent too many years apologizing for myself. I'm done with that." "Good. Don't ever apologize for being remarkable." 3 months into our relationship, Jerome met Simone. They sized each other up like protective siblings. "You hurt her and I will destroy you," Simone said pleasantly over brunch. "Noted," Jerome replied, equally pleasant. "But I have no intention of hurting her." "They all say that." "Simone," I intervened. "Be nice." "I am being nice." "If I wasn't being nice, I'd be running a background check and interviewing his exes." "You did run a background check, didn't you?" "Obviously. He's clean. No criminal record, pays his taxes, volunteers at a homeless shelter. He's almost too perfect. It's suspicious." Jerome laughed. "I'm not perfect. I'm just a guy who's been through some hard things and came out the other side wanting to be better." Simone's expression softened. "Okay, I approve. But I'm watching you. I wouldn't expect anything less." By December, life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. The foundation was thriving. My relationship with Jerome was deepening. I was teaching, volunteering, and living authentically for the first time in years. I ran into Derek one last time at the grocery store 2 weeks before Christmas. He was in the checkout line ahead of me, buying microwave dinners and generic beer. He looked older, tired, worn down by life. He saw me and froze. "Natasha." "Derek. You look good." "Thank you." We stood in awkward silence while the cashier rang up his items. "I heard about your foundation," Derek said finally. "It's impressive." "Really? Thanks. I also heard you're dating someone. A social worker? His name is Jerome. He's a good man." "I'm glad. You deserve that." Derek paid for his groceries and picked up his bags. He hesitated at the exit. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About everything. You were right. About all of it. I was arrogant and stupid and I threw away something real for something fake. I think about that every day. I hope you learn from it, Derek. I hope your next relationship is better." "Yeah, me too." He started to leave, then turned back. "You were always too good for me. I just wish I'd realized it before I lost you. Goodbye, Derek." "Goodbye, Natasha." I watched him walk away, his shoulders hunched against the cold. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel vindication. I just felt done. That chapter of my life was closed. Derek was a memory, not a wound. And I was free to write the next chapter however I wanted. 1 year after the divorce, the Loretta Washington Education Foundation held its annual gala. 500 people attended: donors, educators, scholarship recipients, and their families. Jerome stood beside me as I gave the opening remarks. When my grandmother passed away, she left me a legacy. Not just money but responsibility. The responsibility to use what I'd been given to lift others up. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that we've awarded 200 scholarships this year, totaling $5 million. But more than that, we've created a community. A family of students, mentors, and supporters who believe in the power of education to change lives. The applause was deafening. I looked out at the crowd and saw Brielle, now a freshman at State University, studying pre-med. Travis, who'd written that article, now a sophomore journalism major. 50 other students whose lives had been changed by scholarships and support. After the speeches, Jerome and I mingled with guests. Thomas Bradford approached with his wife, holding a check. "Jennifer and I want to increase our donation," he said. "We've been so inspired by the work you're doing." "Thank you, Thomas. Every dollar goes directly to students." "We know. That's why we trust you with it." Later, Catherine found me by the dessert table. "You did it, Natasha. You turned pain into purpose. Your grandmother would be so proud." "I hope so. I know so. You took what Derek meant as an insult, your teaching career, your small life, and turned it into something beautiful. That's real power. I had good help. You had good character. The help just made it easier." As the gala wound down, Jerome and I stood on the terrace, looking out at the city lights. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different my life is now compared to a year ago. How much happier I am. Any regrets? About Derek? No. The marriage ending was painful but necessary. It freed me to become who I was always meant to be." "And who's that?" "Someone who doesn't hide. Someone who uses her resources and her voice to make a difference. Someone who loves authentically and demands respect in return." Jerome pulled me close. "I love who you are. I love who I am too." Finally, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi Ms. Washington, this is Brielle. I just wanted to thank you again. I got an A on my first anatomy exam. I'm really doing this. I'm going to be a doctor. Thank you for believing in me." I showed Jerome the message. "That's what it's all about," he said. "Changing lives. One scholarship, one opportunity at a time. Want to know a secret? Always. I'm happier now than I ever was with Derek. Even with all the money and the fancy penthouse, I wasn't really living. I was performing. Now I'm living. I can tell. You glow from the inside out." That's cheesy, but true. We stayed on the terrace until the stars came out, talking about future plans. Jerome wanted to expand his nonprofit to 3 more cities. I wanted to add vocational training to the foundation's offerings. Together, we dreamed about the impact we could make. Inside, the gala continued. Donors wrote checks. Students shared stories. Lives intersected and connections formed. This was community. This was purpose. This was home. The next morning, I woke in my penthouse, the same space where Derek had once made me feel small, now reclaimed as mine. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Jerome was in the kitchen making coffee, humming off-key. My phone showed headlines from the gala. Photos of students receiving their scholarships. Quotes from donors about the importance of education equity. My grandmother's name, honored and remembered. I thought about Derek wherever he was. I hoped he was okay. I hoped he'd learned from his mistakes. But mostly I hoped he'd moved on the way I had. Because holding on to anger would have poisoned me. Seeking revenge beyond the truth would have diminished me. Instead, I'd chosen grace, not for him, but for myself. Grace to let go. Grace to rebuild. Grace to dream bigger than I'd ever dreamed before. Simone called. "Did you see the news coverage? You're everywhere. My bougie rich best friend is famous." "I'm not famous. I'm just doing good work." "You're doing incredible work. And you look happy. Actually, genuinely happy. That's what I love most about all this." "I'm happy, Simone. Happier than I've ever been." "You deserve it, Tasha. After everything Derek put you through, you deserve every bit of happiness. We all deserve happiness. Even Derek, eventually. Look at you being all evolved and mature. Someone has to be." We laughed and made plans for brunch next weekend. Jerome emerged from the kitchen with coffee, kissing my forehead as he handed me a mug. "What's the plan for today?" he asked. "I have 3 scholarship interviews this afternoon. Then dinner with you?" "Perfect. I'll cook." "You cook, I'll set the table. Partnership. Equals. Always." That evening, as I interviewed potential scholarship recipients, I saw myself in their faces. Young people who'd worked hard despite obstacles. Students who dreamed big despite limited resources. Kids who just needed someone to believe in them. One girl, a senior named Aisha, reminded me particularly of myself. Smart, driven, but quiet about her ambitions. What do you want to study? I asked. Business. I want to start my own company someday. Help people in my community. That's ambitious. My dad says I should just get a regular job. That business is too risky. But I want more than regular, you know? I want to build something that matters. Your dad's worried about you. That's natural. But don't let fear stop you from chasing your dreams. The world needs more women building businesses, creating opportunities, changing systems. Is that what you did? Built something that matters? Eventually, yes. But it took me a long time to find the courage. I hope you're braver than I was. Aisha smiled. I'll try. After the interviews, I called my financial advisor. I want to increase the foundation's budget. Add vocational training programs and entrepreneurship courses. Start a mentorship initiative. That's a significant expansion. I know, but we have the resources. We should use them. Your grandmother would be proud. That's what everyone keeps saying. Because it's true. That night, Jerome and I cooked dinner together in my kitchen. He made pasta while I prepared salad. We moved around each other comfortably, a domestic dance we'd perfected over months of practice. I have something to tell you, Jerome said as we sat down to eat. My heart jumped. Good something or bad something? Good something. I got a grant. A big one. Enough to expand to 5 cities instead of 3. Jerome, that's amazing. It's because of you. Your foundation's success inspired other donors. They saw what's possible when someone genuinely cares about making a difference. You did this yourself. Your work, your vision, your dedication. Maybe. But you showed me it was possible to dream bigger. To stop thinking small because resources are limited. You changed how I see success. How do you see it now? I see it as impact. Lives changed. Systems improved. Communities strengthened. That's success. The rest is just details. We toasted with water glasses, neither of us drank much, and talked late into the night about possibilities. About the world we wanted to build. About the legacy we wanted to leave. This was partnership. This was love. Not based on who earned more or who had more prestige. Based on shared values, mutual respect, common goals. Based on seeing each other clearly and choosing each other anyway. 2 weeks later, I received a letter. The return address was Derek's brother's house. I almost didn't open it. Catherine had advised me to have no contact with Derek. But curiosity won. Dear Natasha, I know I'm not supposed to contact you. I know you've moved on and you're doing amazing things. I see the news coverage about your foundation. I'm genuinely happy for you. I'm writing because I owe you more than an apology. I owe you acknowledgement. You were right about everything. I was insecure, egotistical, and cruel. I treated you like a prop instead of a partner. I valued image over substance. I destroyed something real because I was too stupid to recognize its value. I'm in therapy now. Working through why I needed to feel superior, why I couldn't just appreciate what I had. My therapist says I have a lot of work to do. She's not wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything really. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I lost. Not the money or the penthouse, those were never mine anyway. I lost you. Your kindness, your intelligence, your genuine heart. I lost the one person who saw me clearly and loved me anyway. I hope Jerome knows how lucky he is. I hope he treats you the way I should have. I hope you're happy, Natasha. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Derek. I read the letter twice, then filed it away in a drawer. Not to treasure it, but to remember it. A reminder of where I'd been and how far I'd come. Derek's acknowledgement didn't change anything. It didn't make the past hurt less or the betrayal sting less sharply. But it did provide closure. He understood now. That was enough. I called Catherine. Derek sent a letter. What did it say? I summarized it. How do you feel? Okay. It was what I needed to hear, I think. Not to take him back, but to know that he finally gets it. Good. Now throw it away and keep moving forward. Already done. The next 6 months were the best of my life. The foundation expanded its programs. Jerome's nonprofit opened in 3 new cities. We collaborated on a mental health initiative for students struggling with academic pressure. I was featured in a magazine article about women in philanthropy. The reporter asked about my divorce. Looking back, what would you say to other women in similar situations? I'd say know your worth. Don't shrink yourself to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. Don't apologize for your success or hide your talents. And if someone can't appreciate you at your fullest, let them go. The right person will celebrate everything you are, not just the parts that make them comfortable. That's powerful advice. It's hard-earned advice, but it's true. On the anniversary of my divorce, Jerome and I took a trip to the coast. We walked along the beach, collecting shells and watching the sunset. Are you thinking about Derek? Jerome asked. No. I'm thinking about how grateful I am. For this moment, this life, this chance to start over. Any regrets? Only that I didn't leave sooner. But maybe I wasn't ready then. Maybe I needed to hit rock bottom before I could climb to the top. You're at the top now? I'm at my top. My best self. My most authentic life. Jerome stopped walking, turning to face me. I love you, Natasha. Not for what you have or what you do. Just for who you are. I love you too. Marry me. The question hung in the air, carried by the ocean breeze. Are you proposing? I asked, surprised. If you want me to get down on one knee in the sand, I will. But yes, I'm proposing. I want to build a life with you. A real partnership based on honesty and respect and love. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep next to you every night. I want to expand our nonprofits together, change the world together, grow old together. You don't care about my money? I care that you use it well. Which you do. But I'd love you if you were broke, Natasha. I'd love you if you were still just a teacher making $38,000 a year. I'd love you if you lost everything tomorrow. Because what I love isn't what you have. It's who you are. Tears streamed down my face. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. He kissed me as the sun set behind us, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. It felt like a beginning and an ending all at once. An ending to the chapter where I hid who I was. A beginning to the chapter where I lived fully, loved deeply, and gave freely. We were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the foundation's headquarters. Scholarship recipients attended, along with close friends and family. Simone was my maid of honor. Jerome's best friend, a fellow social worker, stood beside him. No expensive venue. No designer dress. Just people who loved us, celebrating our commitment to each other and to the work we believed in. I do, I said, meaning it with every fiber of my being. I do, Jerome echoed. We kissed and everyone cheered. This was my happy ending. Not because I'd destroyed Derek or proven him wrong. Not because I'd gotten revenge or made him suffer. But because I'd chosen myself. Because I'd stopped hiding. Because I'd built a life of purpose and meaning and genuine love. Because I'd learned that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's living well. And I was living very, very well.